Greetings and welcome back to JVegas Nerdz Creations and Designs. I'm your host, Dan Blackwell, and it is 18 August 2023, third decade of the 21st century. What are we talking about, nerds? Well, first and foremost, I want to do a quick read and response to my one and loyal viewer on both of my channels, Stace Catalan. Stace, I got your message. I'm terribly sorry for both. I'm terribly sorry you're not going to be able to go to GalaxyCon. And I'm also terribly sorry about your job. If you want to talk about it, I know you're not into doing the whole Zoom thing as of yet. I know you're more comfortable in this medium with the typing. If you want to talk about it, by all means, you know me, I provide a safe space, you know, especially if, you know, the loss of your job had something to do with being a geek or a nerd, right? I mean, if you want to talk about it, by all means. But, you know, I thought about it too, and I was like, okay, if I could get you and your husband a ticket, would that be any good? Because, you know, not that it's any of my business, but part of the reason to go to the con is, you know, certain experiences, like, you know, paying for an autograph or paying for a photo op or an autograph and a photo, you know. And if financially that's not in your wheelhouse because you and your husband both have to, you know, make some adjustments and do some looking internally as, you know, how to move forward until you can find another job, you know, I understand that as well. Because don't get me wrong, I look at the guest roster for GalaxyCon Austin and, you know, just like you might have been jealous of our guest roster, I'm jealous of your guest roster. I mean, Kristen Ritter, David Boreanaz, Angel's going to be there. God, who else? There's some other people that Charlie Cox is supposed to be there. He canceled on us. I know there's a lot of repeat offenders like Vincent D'Onofrio, Ming-Na Wen, a lot of the Star Trek people are going to be there. You know, it doesn't really matter. I know that there's some different guests that are going to be there that weren't in Raleigh. So, yeah, once again, I'm sorry. I hope everything works out, and if you want to talk about it, you know, this, you know, my channels are open. With that being said, as far as being a nerd and a geek, you know, I'm assuming we all have our own walks in life and we all have our own experiences and we have our own thoughts and opinions on any number of topics. What I would like to ask, and I'm going to keep this relatively short so I can get it out there, is what do they say? There's a phrase. It's something, culture is downrange from politics, or politics is downrange from culture. I could have that wrong. I'm not always the greatest at remembering quotes, but oftentimes the culture can have an effect on what's happening, you know, in politics, or politics can have an effect on what's happening in culture. And I feel like lately, if it's not one or the other, it's both. Politics are affecting culture and culture's affecting politics. And why am I talking about it on my nerdier, geekier channel? Because part of what I've noticed is in the lexicon that most of us are involved in, whether it's comic books, whether it's cartoons or anime, whether it's science fiction or fantasy or other forms of storytelling. For me personally, as a fan, I don't want socio-political issues to overwhelm the story being told. If it can happen organically with the existing plot, with the existing story, I'm okay with it. If it flows well, I'm okay with it. Maybe I'm being hypersensitive and I'm curious if anybody else finds themselves in a similar situation, but I feel like a lot of content being made since the trend of awareness or wokeness became a thing, that certain properties are over investing in what's trending, and if there's 15 topics that are trending, that they're trying to hit all of them at once, in such a fashion to where it's so overplayed that the story is literally the trend and not the story. Case in point, I have yet to see it. I've heard some good things and I've heard some bad things about Daredevil season 3. One commentator said that Daredevil season 3 went completely off the rails with socio-political content, if for no other reason than because it's on Netflix. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how true that is. So at the end of the day, while I could just go on and on and on, I'm very curious to hear from any of my fellow nerds and geeks if you have found something very similar, that some of the things you are interested in or would have been interested in or were interested in have been overwhelmed by socio-political content that you feel as though it interferes with the storytelling and makes it unenjoyable. If it's ruined the experience for you, or if a legacy property, like if one of your DC or Marvel legacy properties, like characters that are 40, 50, and 60 years old or older, if the modern storytelling is attempting to address a socio-politically sensitive topic or trend, that it is interfering with the character's canon, it's interfering with the legacy, it's attempting to address something in a modern setting, but it's not being addressed organically and it's interfering with the character. And then conversely, rather than changing existing characters and who they are and how they exist, my thought process is, well, these characters were created from nothing at some point in time. Wonder Woman was created by a polygamist and a feminist. Superman was created by two Jewish men out of Cleveland, Ohio. Batman, oh God, I used to know this, but I can't remember. So at the end of the day, pretty much all of our comic book characters were created from nothing. They didn't exist before. They're not part of folklore, with the exception of maybe Thor. But they were created from nothing. They were created from imagination. Well, why can't we create new characters that could potentially exist within an existing universe that could represent something that is meaningful to others? I'm not... Hang on, give me a second here. Sorry about that. I understand that a certain population of, at the very least, the United States may have felt underrepresented in the past, or not represented at all, and that may not have been fair. It may not have. It also may not have been done on purpose. It may not have been done on, like, so some people like to attribute intent where it wasn't there, and I think specifically when it comes to the more nerdier and geekier stuff that many of us are interested in, since we're already outcasts to begin with, I don't know that many of us harbored any kind of bigotry or ill will, that because most of us were already socially awkward to begin with, or socially outcasted to begin with, that, you know, as part of who we are as people, we never really had any kind of bigotry in our hearts to begin with. So I don't know that there was ever any intent to exclude, you know, any particular group of people. But I think what could happen is, rather than change existing characters and modify existing characters, if they were created out of thin air, why can't we create brand new characters out of thin air, whether they exist in their own universe, in their own storyline, or if they exist as part of an existing universe, an existing storyline? You know, like within the Justice League, the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman lexicon, a new superhero or a new supervillain who is of a socio-economic background or sexual preference or, you know, melanation or whatever the case may be. You know, if there's a real intent to try to represent people who were previously considered unrepresented, then I think instead of trying to modify existing characters, let's create new ones and maybe create them in a way that's appropriate. I think there's been some suggestion that, like, when there were black comic book characters, that they were either A, done by white creators, or that they were done in a stereotypical fashion. So I think what would be more appropriate from this fan's point of view is we can create new characters and they can represent people that have felt underrepresented, and it can be an organic introduction. It can be organic to existing storylines. It could be organic to existing universes, if not creating different universes. And then, like I said before, I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like whether it's the comic book, sci-fi, fantasy genre, or other things, that the studios not knowing how to deal with it in order to try to represent people that were supposedly underrepresented, or in order to try to address certain topics that were trending, they didn't, instead of just admitting that they don't know how to address it and just carry on with the existing story, I feel like they tried to, like, hit every box, and in doing so gave rise to the concept go woke and go broke, because you were disrupting the natural flow and the organic process of storytelling by trying to address all these things. But, you know, what does it matter what I think? I'm curious to hear what y'all think. You know, if you're from a particular group, I mean, if you're not familiar with me, I'm clearly a Caucasian heterosexual male, so that's kind of the lens that I view the world through. I don't typically harbor any hate or bigotry towards anybody for existing. Any of my feelings towards anybody is based on how they conduct themselves. All right, what you get from me is what you earn. All right, if you conduct yourself a certain way, then that's probably how I'm going to treat you. If you're kind, humane, and civil, then I'm going to be equally kind, humane, and civil to you. But with that being said, back on track. Let me know what you think and feel. Do you feel as though your group, your identity was not well represented? Do you feel that the storytelling was good? Or, like me, do you feel like the storytelling was not good, that these people didn't know how to address it, so instead they just went full retard and overly addressed it, and it disrupted the organic flow? Do you think we can create brand new characters and insert them organically into existing universes, or create new universes, new timelines, new stories with newer characters? I mean, do we really need to make Wonder Woman lesbian? Does Superman need to be gay? Or can there be new characters that are this way? I'm curious to know from you. All right. Do you think we need to disrupt existing franchises, or keep them the same but just introduce new characters? A lot of questions, I understand, but, you know, that's what kind of makes us all geeky and nerdy. So, you know, if you want, drop me a line. Where am I at right now? I'm currently trying to figure out how to use ArmorSmith. So in trying to get my 3D prints scaled properly to my dimensions, I'm trying to use ArmorSmith so that when I do print something, that it fits my body. Furthermore, as a up-and-coming business, I'm trying to learn ArmorSmith so that if my business partner and I decide that we're going to start getting into commercial 3D printing, that we can create avatars for customers, and if we have the files, whether provided by us or the customer, we can scale 3D prints to the individual customer's custom avatar. And right now, that's where I'm at. And I'm actually really, really tickled because my son's been helping me. So I look forward to updating you with that. As an FYI, if anybody's used ArmorSmith, by all means, drop me a line. Apparently what I did is when I did all my measurements and I used the Google inches to millimeters conversion, when I uploaded the millimeters, I don't think it kept the decimal point. So like my head was apparently over 2,000 millimeters tall. So the program didn't maintain the decimal place. So I think that's part of the problem we're running into. So as always, the channel's open. I don't care about the likes, the notifications, or the subscriptions. I'm not at that point yet, and I don't know if as a business, if that's really what I'm interested in. If not, I'm more interested in opening up the channel for discussion. So please leave a comment. I promise if you do, I will read, react, and respond to it, and provide some feedback, and hopefully talk about something else nerdier and geeky. Until then, stay awesome, keep it nerdy.